to an inquiry into empathy quotient by Vidya Damani. Through the medium of a podcast, we're going to speak to leaders from diverse fields to understand empathy in action. How can empathy be measured, taught, or even implemented? If you have ever asked yourself or have ever wanted to be a more empathetic leader or even a human being, then stay tuned because together we will understand how to do that. Hello and welcome to the first podcast. We have with us Kiran Khalap, and I would like to first introduce him. So Kiran has been in the communications industry since 1983. Wow.
Old.
Also been the CEO of Clarion Advertising, founded and is now today the managing director of Chlorophyll. He's also a TED speaker, has written 5 books.
4.
And I think the project that he's been most proud of, which is Pro Bono, is Aadhaar.
Correct.
Where you were the chairperson
Yes.
of the entire advisory to the
Committee.
government of India. Yeah, that was fantastic and something that we're all very proud of for you. So why I really wanted Kiran as the first guest, and Kiran, I've said this to you off camera, right? Is that, when I thought about the whole idea of empathy in action or empathy quotient, everyone told me that it's not possible that you can have productivity and empathy. You have to choose either or. Either you'll have a very productive, business, or you can just be nice to people. And why I needed you here, because you are the proof that this can happen.
Right.
And I'm not just saying this because I've been with Chlorophyll for so long and that you're my friend, philosopher and guide and boss for so many years. No, that's not the reason I'm saying it. Anyone that has ever worked in Chlorophyll will agree with me that it has been one of the best cultures. It's very empathetic. It's a safe space, and yet we're all very productive. And you've been running a business since 1999.
Correct.
So that's really why you are here. Thank you very much for.
Thank you for having me.
So my first question to you, Kiran, is what does empathy-based leadership look like to you?
My first response is there any other
Oh wow.
type of leadership?
Okay.
So I just want to talk around it
Yes.
a bit. And I will take starting point from one of my passions. So I learned rock climbing in 1977. The shoes we wore were called Bata Hunter shoes.
Okay.
Okay, they were large, clunky shoes meant for hiking, not for rock climbing. So whoever ended up learning rock climbing in that era, we ended up looking up for the handhold
Okay.
on a rock. And you can't stand on your hands but you can stand on your legs for the whole day. So you ended up getting tired faster. Then around 1995 or so, what are called as sticky rubber shoes, which fit your feet like a glove, and you are able to stand on the smallest nub in the rock. So you have to fundamentally change where we looked. We have to now start looking down to see where I'm going to put my foot and stand on it and then reach the hold. So to me, where does the leader look is a question.
Fantastic.
So when we were doing, in 2014, we were doing, Nandan Nilekani stood for elections in Bangalore from the Congress party. At that time, he had mandated us to define his leadership role as a brand.
Okay.
And I thought we did it was beautiful. So we had the first style of leadership. We are talking political leadership.
Right.
First style of leadership, second style of leadership, and the third style. So the first style were Nehru, Gandhi, who were people who were involved in the freedom struggle.
Right.
The second style was not people who were involved, and then there was a third style. And in his case, we called it the third style of leadership, which was not looking down, but looking sideways.
Wow.
So you're walking together. So if you take that to corporate, is the leader looking down? These are my people. Is he looking sideways? These are my people coming up. Or is he looking forward? I'm behind. There is this entire thing about leadership from behind.
Yes.
Right? Leaders eat last. These are all the new paradigms that are. Now, Was I conscious in doing all of this? I don't think so. Was I conscious that that's the kind of leadership I wanted? No. It was inherent. And I think whatever leaders there are, corporate leaders, political leaders, NGO heads, whatever, a lot comes from who their exemplars were. Where did they look? Who did they look up to? So in my case, it was my dad. Absolutely no question about it. The deepest impressions, and like any true within quotes leader, there was no bhashan. There was no lecture. There was demonstration.
Right.
Very recently, about 5 years ago, my sister told me, I didn't know that he would pay my mother a salary. This is 1950s and 60s.
Fantastic.
Because he said, you are my equal. You have to, because of the amount of work you do, you have to have money which only you have the right to spend. I will never ask you. She was ill for 20 years. He would get up and make breakfast for us. Right? So that entire sense of equality, irrespective of role, was ingrained. So when I have not come into any organization and said, oh my God, these are the people who are going to follow me now, I have to decide on. It was never that. It was all at the same level. Equal.
Right. Yeah.
So that is the ingrained thing. That was one thing, that it's equal, and over time in chlorophyll we have refined it further and further. We have said that we are all equal as human beings, but not necessarily as professionals. Therefore, otherwise you would come at and say, if you are all equals, you almost have the same salary, which is not the right thing to do. That has evolved over time. The second theme, I think, when I look back and I say, how did I evolve as a leader? I, again from my dad, I had this, he started working for his family when he was 13.
Okay.
1-3. Right? He looked after them. So this notion of taking responsibility was another thing deeply ingrained in me.
Okay.
So one of the reasons why I ended up being a creative director after just 3 years in advertising, a CEO after being a creative director, all of that is this natural inclination to take responsibility disproportionate to my station.
Okay.
Because when you take that responsibility, you are going to work harder to live up to it.
Right.
And whoever is giving you that responsibility is very happy. If he is taking it, why not?
Yes.
So those are the two themes that fed into my behavior and my attitude as a leader. So in my head, I'm not a leader. I'm at the same level as the human beings. Yes, I have responsibilities which are different from yours.
Right.
Or from somebody else's. But that's about it. Otherwise, we are all the same.
I have a feeling that there's something that you do other than, of course, there's been an inspiration, but is like what makes you so grounded? You talk about this lovely concept of low center of gravity. So is that an innate kind of quality someone has, or do you feel that you did struggle at some point as, let me not say leadership, but in your whatever responsibility you had, did you have struggles?
So that's a nice question. The way I want to make a slightly radical statement. It has come from J. Krishnamurti, whom I read and who kind of caused some change in my consciousness. So the thing he used to say is that you cannot practice any virtue.
Okay.
You cannot practice empathy. You cannot practice love. You can't go out and say, I will be loving. I will be compassionate. I will be empathetic. Because already in that sentence, there is a division.
Okay.
I will be loving. And then there will be an object. I will be loving to whom? Father, mother, husband, sister, wife. But that is because they are related to you. In an ideal scenario, you are compassionate. There is no object. You will be compassionate to anything.
Anything. Wow.
And when we say, why do marriages break? Why do you fall out of love? Because you've fallen in love as I. Automatically you will fall out of love. Because then it doesn't match I,
Right.
that I's expectation, you fall out of love. But if you were loving, everybody would get that love from you. I remember when the lockdown happened, there were some 10 security guards who could not go to their homes.
Right.
The
Yeah.
others went. And everybody kind of made sure that they got some food or whatever. But the feeling I was when I was talking to them, they are lonely as hell. Because they said that my fate is this. I have to stay here. My children and my father, mother, everybody's in Gaza. And look at those lucky ones, they went.
Right.
So at the end of it, I said, look, I have to do something. So I bought these tarpaulins and I started teaching them breathing and yoga. Because I know that breathing exercise, there is now proof. I don't know if you're aware that there is this technique called fMRI, functional
Right.
MRI, which
Right.
got perfected in 91, which now gives you proof as you are meditating or as you are breathing about what is happening to your brain structure.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So earlier you used to lie in that big machine, but fMRI made it all very, very dynamic. So now there is clear-cut proof that the breathing exercise, meditation, yoga directly affect the brain. So I wanted them to get over that depression,
Right.
get over that sense of isolation through this. Instead of giving them a lecture, what's the point? If you really feel, then you feel. In my wife's case, she looks after spiders also.
Yes.
Just as she looks after dogs and cats, she also looks after spiders.
Right. I really like this idea of I am compassionate and,
No
and I'm
object.
universally compassionate, not to one person or to
There is no
choose.
object.
There's no object. That is a very, very powerful thought.
Yeah.
Not easy to understand
Yes.
immediately.
Yes.
Yes.
And certainly not easy to live up to, because we have lived with the concept of an I think around 5 years of age is when we developed that concept, and we have lived up with that for, in my case, 60 years.
Coming back to what I was asking you earlier, I remember when I joined Chlorophyll, and I used to tell you that, I like to separate my professional and personal life.
Yes.
And you always said that no, when someone comes to work, they are one person. There is
Correct.
no professional and personal.
Correct.
And personally, I didn't want to know anyone's personal life, because then I'd know that someone's father is not well, and it would come in the way if I had to say, by Monday, this needs to be done, right? But now, then you are forced to be compassionate, because you're like,
Correct.
now I know about this thing. And if you don't, then you can just be kind of a taskmaster. But of course, I think over the years, thanks to the way you have demonstrated it, I feel like I have been kind of practicing it. And it's a great thing to know a person, in their entirety.
Yes.
Because then you know how to encourage when you know that the pressure is too much and you got to
Correct.
back off.
Correct.
So actually it's worked beautifully.
Correct.
So like this, I mean, there are tons of examples. But what do you feel is a tool that is there any tool that you use other than...
Just to go back to what I was saying, that you cannot practice, you cannot say, I'm going to become loving from tomorrow. So where does empathy come from? Where does love come from? When this notion of I is less and less and less, you are spending more time watching others. You are spending more time observing others, looking at, I don't know if you remember, you called me once while I was in a car. From your voice, I could make out that you were in trouble.
Yes, I remember
You
that.
had lost a very dear friend.
Yes.
If I'm not paying attention to your voice, I won't know this, right? So there is this entire sense of, is there mental space for others? Are you observing what is happening in their life? What is somebody not smiling today? And I don't think it is necessary to know the details of the person's life. It is necessary to relate to what that person is at that moment.
Right.
So the phrase I had created, and I think it's probably a concept that was nurtured by all these American movies on New York and all ways, that you are a shark in the office and you go home and you become a dolphin. And you play with your kids and wife. And you could do it, but you are creating a greater divide. So, since I'm an author, I love what words mean. So, an individual means not divided. Why are you dividing again? So, if the more undivided you are, and now there is a lot of literature, a lot of research saying, bring your whole person to the office.
To office, correct. That is so true. So you were much ahead of your time in that sense.
Again, not planned or not practiced. Those are the influences that made that happen to me.
Right. Could you describe, like when you've seen empathy in action, maybe not by you, but someone else who you've, of course you spoke about your dad, but anyone else in the corporate environment that you could give an example
Lots.
of? Okay.
See, if you look at, let us talk about business per se. If you ever get time, read a book called Prosperity, which explains the entire thing about business, how business has run. For instance, the word company, again, as an author, I have to break it down. Campanis means eating bread together.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you look at companies, if you look at the history of companies, they were never divisive. When we were you were working with me on CK Birla Group.
Right.
I had gone to the Hindustan Motors factory in Calcutta. 1 university, 2 schools, 2 hospitals, sports arena. It was meant to make the entire workforce happy.
Right.
It wasn't just for the white collar workers. And if you read that book, Prosperity, if you think about Japan, 40% of the businesses that are more than 200 years old around the world, 40% of them are Japanese.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you mentioned.
Because they are embedded in social group. They are not talking about the owner's profitability. Yes, the business has to be profitable to survive 200 years, right? Otherwise it would shut down. So if you're, to me, when I had gone to this place called Atul, and this was the Lal Bhais where they started.
Right.
India's first factory. It was inaugurated by Jawaharlal Nehru.
Oh, fantastic. India's first factory ever.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you go there, it doesn't look like a chemical factory. It's all green. And there's a museum. And this, I think it was his granddaughter who took me to the museum. And at the end of it, I was in tears.
Oh, wow.
Because the things he would do. When you're talking about empathy and compassion and looking after others, he and his wife got married very early, but they decided that they would not have kids because they had to look after the factory.
And I think what I'm taking back is also very clear that you need to figure out as an individual how you can have that headspace to think of others.
Correct.
And not only yourself.
Correct.
Like
so the key action of the human mind that does not create karma is observation.
Observation.
Yeah. So if when you had earlier asked me can you teach empathy?
Yes.
So
in
I
fact,
said
that
you
was
cannot-
going to be my yes.
That you cannot practice virtue. In the same way, you cannot teach empathy, but empathy will arise if you learn observation. And the first object of observation should be yourself.
Nice.
So if you do not spend 5 or 10 or 15 minutes looking at what you did, what are the roots of your action, once that becomes clear, then what is outside will also become clear. Right? I have created a phrase for myself that the day I realized how difficult it is to change myself, I stopped trying to change anybody else.
Fantastic. That
No
is a
point.
really, really fantastic
Because
realization.
you know how difficult it is to change yourself. Any habit.
Yeah.
If you say tomorrow, start getting up at 4 tomorrow, it's not possible. Get up at my normal time of 6:30, and you can, but it will be painful. So the way to, if at all empathy is important, if at all compassion is important, then the starting point is yourself.
Right.
not that object, not the person whom you want to help.
Right.
The more you look at this, the roots of your action, the clearer it will be what anybody else is doing.
That is fantastic. Now that is easy to implement
Correct.
and practice,
Correct.
or at least start practicing.
Correct.
Yeah. And what about the other thing? So most people, when I'm talking about empathy, this whole thing that you can't have a productive business if you're going to be empathetic. So we did kind of bust that myth by bringing you here. The other is, how do you make sure someone is not taking advantage of you? So I have been told that, if you're just going to be nice all the time, there are people who can take advantage. By advantage, of course, in a workspace, it's more of you won't get the job done. You won't get the outcome that you're kind of expecting. So how have you personally kind of dealt with that?
Maybe that's a mistaken notion that because you have empathy, you will not demand work.
Okay, that's interesting, yes.
Yeah. Why would it? I have, because I have empathy, I also have trust. Look at us. We are all working from home.
Yeah.
If I didn't have trust, it won't work. If each of us didn't have trust on the other, it won't work. So go back to responsibility. So the my empathy says that if I know this person and if she has taken responsibility, she will live up to it. And if she doesn't live up to it, she will tell me why she hasn't lived up to it. The way, not taking advantage, the way I look at it is, once, twice, 3 times, there is an emerging pattern that somebody is not living up to his or her role, what they are meant to do. In my head, the way to look at it is, if I allow this to happen, whether he is taking advantage of me is a separate thing. If I'm allowing this to happen, very simply, I'm being unfair to others who are not doing that.
Okay.
In my team. So we have had people who got into a physical fight. That's not allowed. The thing is, I wasn't saying, oh my God, I must be nice to this person. But neither was I angry about that person. I understood where that person was when he got into a physical fight. And then I said, boss, we'll have to part company. It cannot be. You can say to me that it will not be repeated, but it's already done.
Right.
You have to part company. You remember what we did with some of the biggest business houses.
Yes.
We must be the only brand consultancy that has sacked such big names. And again, when they said...
I mean, just for the audience, that what he's referring to is when, they were not behaving well with our people, the team that was working with them. And that's when Kiran said that we will not be able to continue this project if this is the way you're going to treat my team.
Yeah. So I remember you returning and I realized that there was something wrong. And you weren't going to tell me, but then I asked you. Now the key thing here is that person whom we went and told, he was aware that I knew all the board members because I've been working with that company since 1983.
Oh, wow. Yes.
So he said, so you are going to go and tell the board members. The thing was, I wasn't angry, so I was telling him, absolutely no. This is between you and me. Why would I go to any board member and tell them?
But that's a very valid point, that you could see an action which is not correct or is not correct in a work environment, but you're not angry about it.
Correct.
Okay.
You have an understanding that here are the circumstances. That's why I'm saying, the day you realize that you can't change yourself, do I get angry? Yes, once in 5 years. But I still do. So there is still not, I still haven't figured out the roots of that anger totally. It's not gone entirely out. Yes, there are more circumstances where people expect me to be angry, but I'm not.
Right.
But it still hasn't been erased. But I can't, again, that's what I'm saying. I can't start by saying, I will erase anger. It will not happen.
Right.
Because there is still that division of I and anger.
Right.
There is a philosopher called Ken Wilber who says a beautiful analogy. He says it is like standing in a bucket and trying to pick yourself up.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
But this concept of I and removing I, when you started practicing the J. Krishnamurti way of
Not
life?
practicing. That was the starting point.
Okay.
That there isn't anything like that.
that brings me to the concluding question, which is that a lot of people who are going to be watching this are people that are maybe in a leadership position, or even just as a human being want to be more empathetic but might not know where to really start. So what is your message to them, or what, would you suggest something that they do or practice to kind of strengthen that muscle?
That is, there is only one behavior, which is what I call the observation.
Observation.
There is anything else is what I refer to as conceptual. See, conceptual changes, conceptual understanding is okay in a technical field.
Right.
Building a bridge, you need to understand the concept of an arc and the concept of a foundation. But when it comes to a human being, that conceptual knowledge is of no use. So it has to be a kind of a surgery with your observation, where you're looking at it. Like when people say, give us another analogy. The other analogy is, I don't know whether you watch cricket, but certainly Aruna watches cricket.
Yes, I don't.
So the fundamental question asked is, when you're watching cricket and there is a decision to be made and somebody refers it to the third umpire.
Third umpire.
What does the third umpire do?
He's observing it from a neutral perspective, and a different perspective, a different camera.
Yes, and
Making a decision.
no, and what does he tell the cameraman to do?
Slow it down.
Exactly.
Oh, fantastic.
The slower it is, the clearer it is. So if you sit by yourself and slow the whole thing down. See, actually when you're angry, when you're in anger, or when you're sad, when you're in sadness, there is zero things you can do. There is this very funny lady who, I forget her name, who says, when I get angry, I count till 20 and then I biff that person. Because when you're angry, you can't stand in the bucket and pick yourself up. That part of you which is angry and that part of you which is saying don't be angry is the same. But later on, when everything is calmed down and you're by yourself and you sit and then you say, okay, let me forget who caused the anger. Let me see where it started. Then you say, I was expecting this. That is the starting point.
Expectations. Yes.
I had built up this expectation and that person ignored it, did not look at me or did not say hello. At a life level, the other phrase that I use is, are you leading a second-hand life? Have you asked those questions? Have you accepted what has been given to you from childhood, that this is success? Success means house. I have friends who, live on less than 1,200 calories and are saving bears in Leh. They are perfectly happy. There's another friend who's teaching school children Bihar. He's perfectly happy.
Right.
His brother is a multimillionaire. But he's refused to accept that success has only one definition.
Right.
That's what I mean by a second life. So leader must be rich. When I joined Clarion as a creative director, the people who worked under me, their salaries were higher than me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. And how did you feel about that?
I didn't. I discovered it much later.
Okay.
It's not that the person who was paying them higher than me had decided to pay me lower. I had asked only for this salary, not aware of.
So that, yeah.
So, but it's a second-hand thought that the leader must be paid the highest.
I really like this idea of second-hand life.
Yeah.
Which basically means that you're using someone else's definition.
Correct.
Or definitions that have just been
For
told
everything.
to you. You're not defining your own, what is success, what is happiness.
See, where are the biggest expectations coming from? The biggest expectations come from relationships and the name of the relationship. So you think that she's my sister. So this is how a sister should behave. but it's just a name. If you look at your life, 50% of their enrichment will come from relationships which have no name.
Wow. That is a fantastic thought.
Yeah. You're not seeing, there might be somebody who's neither friend nor brother nor something else, but has enriched your life.
And it's true, because sometimes you could be watching something, you could be in a meeting with a person and they say something which is so enriching.
Absolutely. Culturally, because of this accepted norms, guru or boss or elderly, we look up.
Right.
And then there is this question of subconsciously we use this sense of empathy or compassion for those who are reporting to us.
Wow. So interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you are saying,
Insightful.
no, I must look after her. I must look after him. In the bargain, there are very few people who are compassionate to their bosses or empathetic to their bosses. Why? He is also a human being. She is also a human being. She also needs it.
That's true.
And even more difficult, sideways. Your peer group is permanently in competition with you.
Yes.
Again, something that has been, it's a second-hand concept that there is competition. There isn't. There is enough and more to live, and each one is so unique.
That is very interesting. And that's why I think that whole concept of it's lonely at the top comes in. Right? Because the ones who are reporting into you are not, they want you to be empathetic to them, but you are not being empathetic to your manager or boss.
Correct.
Right.
If you understand that he is a human being like you, has the same drives,
Right.
has the same insecurities, whatever, then you start observing and you understand that yes, he will also need help sometime.
Right. Yeah. When I look at the culture of chlorophyll and where you said you started from by observing your father, and that is the kind of the way of life and the way of thinking
Correct.
you have inculcated.
Absolutely.
And I feel that's what the culture is. It's almost like a chain reaction because
Yes.
of the way you demonstrate it. So that is the way everyone starts behaving. And I think it's a subconscious, almost a subconscious passing on
Yeah.
through demonstration,
For
not through
everybody.
telling
Yeah.
or
So-
teaching. So thank you very, very much, Kiran, for taking time out
Oh, it was lovely.
and being on the first one, which really meant a lot to me.
As I keep saying, I'm famous for sharing my ignorance on any topic.
That's you being very, very humble. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed this episode and took back a lot, because I really did. And what I'm going to do is keep adding summaries of the takeaways in the comment boxes. So please like, share, as well as add your comments. And if you'd like to individually write to me, my email address will be there in the comment boxes. Thank you.